Ever think about what it really means, like really, to live that American dream? Especially when you're trying to balance it with, holding on to your heritage and background.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to unpack, right?
Totally. And today, we're diving deep into a story that highlights these exact complexities. We're looking at the Zhang family.
Okay.
A first-generation Chinese-American family living in Bethesda, Maryland.
Bethesda. Interesting. So we're talking, what, suburban D.C. area?
Exactly. And their story. It's full of those moments where you see the challenges and triumphs of navigating two worlds.
You're right. The Zhangs give us such a unique perspective on the whole immigrant experience, because it's not just about, achieving that American dream, that outward success. It's about the nuances, the everyday struggles of balancing two cultures. And then on top of that, how do you pass that whole experience onto your kids?
Right. It's more than just checking boxes. It's about preserving identity, too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. We've got Li and Mei Zhang, both in their early 50s, successful professionals, beautiful home in Bethesda, 2 kids, Jing and Hui.
Got it.
On the surface, it sounds like the picture perfect, they've made it kind of story.
They do seem to be living a version of that dream, right? But what's interesting is the deeper you go, the research paints a much more, you could say, intricate picture.
Oh, how so?
Well, there's this one moment described where Mei, the mom, she just breaks down crying, and it's after their child, Jing, receives a B on a test.
A B, wow.
Yeah, and she says, and this is a direct quote, "We left everything behind so you could have a better life."
Oh, wow.
It really highlights the weight of expectations, right? The sacrifices that so many immigrant families carry with them every single day.
It's like that B isn't just a grade, it represents something so much bigger.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that behind that facade of success, there are always deeper stories. And it sounds like for the Zhangs, holding on to their Chinese heritage is a huge part of who they are.
Absolutely, and it comes out in everything they do. They are incredibly intentional about keeping traditions alive. And it's not just a surface level thing either. They celebrate the holidays, but they really want to imbue those traditions with meaning,
Yeah.
Make them relevant.
The research mentioned something about Mei and calligraphy, right?
Yes. This is a great example. Mei actually runs a calligraphy workshop at their local community center. She teaches kids traditional Chinese calligraphy.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It is. It's like this beautiful bridge, connecting those younger generations to their cultural roots through art.
I love that.
And it really shows how the Zhangs aren't just focused on preserving their heritage within their own family. They're sharing it, actively sharing it with their community.
It's like they're strengthening their connection to their heritage by sharing it with others.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really amazing how they're finding ways to make those traditions come alive for a younger generation. But, raising kids in a place like Bethesda, with its reputation for intense academic competition, I imagine that adds a whole other layer of, complexity.
Oh, absolutely. The research talks about this, actually, about how Mei feels this constant pressure to make sure both Jing and Hui are excelling in that, hyper-competitive school system.
Right, because it's Bethesda.
Exactly. Top grades, extracurriculars, the whole 9 yards. And, it's something a lot of parents can relate to, that push for achievement, but it takes on a whole different meaning when it's tied to the sacrifices they made as immigrants.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like they're trying to ensure their kids have every opportunity, but also worrying if those opportunities might cause them to, drift away from their heritage.
Exactly. And the research even quotes Mei as saying, and this is her words, "It's a balancing act that feels impossible sometimes."
Wow.
Trying to find that sweet spot, where they instill those values and traditions from their Chinese upbringing while also encouraging their kids to embrace American culture.
It's like walking a tightrope, right?
It really is.
And I'm curious, how do they navigate that with their kids, especially with teenagers who are already, in that phase of figuring out their own identities?
Right. Good point. And the research hints at some tensions there. For example, it seems like Jing, their oldest, is really fully immersed in that whole Bethesda bubble we talked about. Super focused on academics, fitting in with their peers.
Makes sense.
But then you have Hui, the younger one, who seems a lot more drawn to their cultural heritage. They even join Mei in those calligraphy workshops.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So each child is connecting in their own way. It speaks to how diverse those experiences can be, even within the same family.
Totally.
And of course, all of this is happening, with the backdrop of their careers' everyday life.
The research mentioned Lai's job in tech is pretty demanding.
Yeah, it sounds intense. Long hours, high pressure, that sort of thing. And it seems like May ends up shouldering, well, a significant portion of the family responsibilities.
Oh, how so?
Well, managing the household, supporting the kids' academics, keeping up with those cultural connections we talked about.
Right.
It's a lot to manage.
It really is. And that brings us to another layer of their story that I found really, poignant. This whole idea of the stigma surrounding mental health, particularly in their culture. Yes, and it's so important that we talk about this because this is an aspect that often gets overlooked, right?
For sure.
And in the research, it reveals that May has been dealing with a lot of anxiety, but is really hesitant to actually seek help for it.
Because of the stigma.
Exactly. She even mentions this Chinese proverb, Jia Chubuko Wei Yang, which basically means family ugliness should not be aired publicly.
Wow, that's heavy.
It is. It reflects that immense cultural pressure to keep your personal struggles, private.
Yeah.
Which, as you can imagine, can be a huge barrier to getting support. And it highlights this urgent need for culturally sensitive mental health resources, especially within immigrant communities.
It's heartbreaking, Thinking about those added pressures and how someone's background can impact something as important as their mental well-being makes those conversations about mental health even more vital, don't you think?
100%. And it's not even just about, access to resources. It's about creating an environment, a space where people from all walks of life, all backgrounds feel understood, safe when they reach out for help. Like, seeking help shouldn't mean compromising your values,
Right. Absolutely. It makes you realize just how much we still need to learn and understand about each other's experiences. Yeah. We've covered a lot with the Zhang family. We talked about their heritage, that constant pressure for academic success, even the stigma around mental health. But I'm curious, from all of this, what are some of their biggest hopes, and fears for that matter, when it comes to their children's future?
That's a really good question. And the research does shed some light on this. Like, a lot of parents, education, financial security, those are huge for them.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which, given their own journey, all those sacrifices, it makes sense. But there's also this underlying fear, this worry about discrimination. They want their children to achieve the American dream, of course, but there's this worry in the back of their minds, this fear about the challenges they might face simply because of their heritage.
That's a tough reality to confront.
It is.
This idea that even when you achieve a certain level of success, those prejudices, they can still be there.
Exactly. And it just highlights how important it is to create a society that truly values diversity, where everyone feels like they belong. Because the Zhang story, it's not unique. It reflects a common thread, the experience of countless immigrant families who are just trying to carve out their place while holding on to their heritage.
The constant push and pull.
Yes. And I think their challenges, their aspirations, even their fears, they encourage all of us to look beyond just the surface, right? To really engage in these deeper conversations about identity, belonging, and what it truly means to achieve the American dream in all of its complexities.
It's about more than just checking boxes, right? It's about the nuances, the challenges, and the triumphs that come with navigating multiple worlds. And the Zhang story, it's a powerful reminder that there's always more beneath the surface. Their experience makes you stop and think about those families right here in our own communities and the unique challenges they face every day. It's a deep dive that really stays with you. One that makes you consider how you can contribute to a more inclusive world, a more understanding world for everyone.